Hey folks, let's say you want to use your reef keeping skills and decide to start a side hustle to make a little extra money by servicing an aquarium at a nearby business. To sweeten the deal, this client or business also has no real budget restrictions. So you jump in on this adventure and think, what could really go wrong with this experience? This will actually be fun. I can see what it's like running a tank with all the bells and whistles and experience what it's like having really expensive livestock, fish and coral that I probably could never afford. So in short, you can do something you love while also making a little bit of money. However, one evening you get a phone call and this video is sent over. You then immediately ask yourself, what have I gotten myself into? Welcome back to the channel, folks. Today I'm going to share with you my experience setting up and maintaining my first business account. And what was unique about this particular client is that there was no budget restriction for the most part. I was able to purchase almost any gear I felt necessary, and perhaps that was unnecessary. And the selection of fish and coral was also without budget. In today's video, I'll walk you through the tank specs, what my service fee was, my maintenance schedule, and what I did, and showcase some of the fish and coral that this tank had. Lastly, I will share with you an important lesson I learned while taking care of this client's tank. Actually, a failure on my part. So please like this video and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out, keeps me motivated, and keeps me going. Now let's go ahead and get into it. The tank chosen by the client was a Red Sea Max S500 complete plug-and-play reef system. Came with the LEDs, etc. It was roughly 132 gallons in size. The tank was purchased for around $6,000, so a heavy chunk of change, I would say. And I agreed to set up the tank for the client for $1,000. And that included the unboxing of the tank, building of the stand, sump, tank installation, leveling of the tank, setting up the RODI unit, the initial filling of the tank, setting up of the apex, all the equipment, and kickstarting the cycle. And this took roughly, I would say, 2 full days on a weekend to accomplish. Now the goal of this side hustle was to only service this client's tank on Saturdays or on the weekends. I did not want this to interfere with my real career, so I visited the site once a week. Each week I tested relevant water parameters, cleaned the tank, changed out filter socks, drained the skimmer cup, fed some frozen food, reviewed the apex log for any issues, filled the auto top-off reservoir, and did a thorough inspection and game plan for any new issues such as new algae, fish death, or coral death. Now another thing I often had to do each week was to place new corals on the rock structure. So with no budget limitations, the owner was buying corals quite frequently. And so this was something I had to do each week was, let's take a look at the frag rack, let's see what's been purchased, and let's place the corals on the rock. And by the way, look at that regal. Not a great picture, but that was one of the more expensive fish I got to care for in this tank, and it was just beautiful. Now in addition to those maintenance tasks I would do each week, twice a month I would also mix up some 2-part and top off the 2-part containers. I'd perform a 10% water change and clean the sand bed. And then I would also periodically, I think it was about every 6 months or so, I would swap out filters on the RODI unit and replace the membrane if needed. To do this service, I charged $400 per month, and this number was based on calling around a few aquarium service companies in my area to get a sense of what was reasonable. And on top of this, I required the client to fund all equipment, all maintenance supplies, and all livestock. In terms of equipment, so this tank did have a few bells and whistles, I would say. The client purchased the Neptune auto feeder, gyri pumps. We had a T5 LED hybrid set up using 2 Kessel AP700s at the time. And this was actually the first real challenge I faced because of the budget. The client was always interested in the latest and greatest technology, right? And so as a result of that, the tank was always undergoing changes. And with this hobby, change is never good, or at least it never should happen so fast. It should be a little bit slower. So as you can see, we sold off the AI LEDs that came with the system, even though they were performing quite well, I thought. And just the change of the lights, I think, set the tank back a month or two as we learned how to dial in the new Kessels. We replaced a stock Red Sea skimmer with an oversized Deltec skimmer with, again, more bells and whistles. The client even picked up the automated self-cleaning skimmer head unit that rotates periodically to clean the skimmer neck. So that's something I never have seen firsthand myself, never have had. Again, fascinating and convenient, but unnecessary and not really life-changing when it came to maintenance. Another thing to clean, perhaps, for me in the end. And it didn't really impact the overall success of this tank. Livestock in this tank started out fairly reasonable, I would say, or perhaps the initial choices were common, right? We had some beautiful torches and hammers. We had some designer mushrooms, some Goniopora, like this nice pink Goniopora, some different kinds of polyps, these red people eaters, various blastomas, and a very healthy bubble coral. And these are great pieces. They're actually large pieces for starting out. So quite nice corals, I would say. So the fish we started out with were similar, I would say, to the quality and price of the corals. So we started out with a nice mystery wrasse, a pair of designer clowns, so that gets the price up there a little bit, a cute little banded goby, and a magnificent fox face. And that kind of fox face, yeah, you're getting your $200 right in your price range. However, after this point, the client really started to turn it up a notch. I mean, he picked up a ORA Mandarin that was trained on pellet foods, so on prepared foods. The Regal, like I previously mentioned, and then shown in that previous shot, a blotched Anthias that was nearly $800. A $400 to $500 wrasse that I won't attempt to pronounce, but I'll put the name here on the screen. And a black tang. I've never seen a black tang in person. And this was I think it was $1,200, so it was over $1,000 to bring in this fish. And another expensive tang was a chevron tang that he picked up, and that was also nearly $1,000. And so this here is me trying to gently acclimate these fish. My approach to adding fish became much more conservative, right? So I'm dealing with $1,000 fish now. In this video, it's a little challenging with the LEDs. It's hard to get a good look at the chevron, but clearly a beautiful fish. But as you can imagine, my stress levels began to increase. I got a little bit more worried. I was a caretaker of this tank with very, very expensive fish. So my side hustles soon became something more than just a weekend fun adventure. It became something that I thought about and worried about at night during the week. So at the same time these more expensive fish started to come in, the client's taste in corals also began to steer towards frags that were more rare and much more expensive, right? Such as this grafted Monty. There was various high-end zoanthids, more rare acropora coming in, some scalimias coming in that were very beautiful and colorful, these rare plate corals, etc. Now, expensive corals that are colorful are just fantastic, don't get me wrong, but the challenge was that the budget was so unrestricted, it proved to be very difficult to achieve stability in the first year of this tank's life. So each week I showed up, there were new corals in the tank. So you have the client, probably some employees, who knows, who's putting the corals in this tank, right? Many people that may not be experienced. And you soon realize that this isn't like your home aquarium, right? You have less control of this system than what you're used to. Now here comes my first breaking point or failure. I get a call one day by the client saying the tank is full of microbubbles. I had assumed something was just wrong with the skimmer and it was throwing microbubbles in the tank. So I log into the Apex remotely and I see the salinity has been increasing. So I thought that was odd. So I immediately jump in my car and drive down on like a Thursday night. And it was about a 30-40 minute drive away from my home. Now I get to the site and the issue was quickly identified. The gravity-fed auto top-off float was not functioning and was in need of cleaning. Something that could have been resolved in just a few minutes if the tank was closer to me or if I had done a better job of my maintenance, right? So the tank was losing water to evaporation and wasn't being topped off, and as a result the return pump was sucking in air and producing all those microbubbles. So I cleaned the float, got the issue fixed, but unfortunately it was too late. I started to see negative effects within a week or two. That small event, right? That small little event seemed minor, but that stability was gone for a few hours. Polyps were closed or starting to melt, heads were being lost on several LPS corals, and cyano and other algae started to appear, likely due to the die-off, and we even lost a few fish. It was like dominoes were falling, and the tank was going through its first crash. So I had to learn a hard lesson. I wasn't able to take care of this tank on my own. In my recent video on achieving great coral growth, I emphasized the need for daily observation of our aquariums. And I know we can't do it every day, especially on vacation, but when we can, we should. I was unable to give this tank that kind of effort. Now, I did my best to move corals to my tank and try to get them to recover, and did have some success, but I would rather be proactive. So what should I have done? Where was my failure? I should have done a better job of educating the client and employees at this business on how to do that daily observation or that daily check-in. That is the takeaway. If you ever decide to service aquariums for a little extra cash or perhaps as a career, don't overlook providing enough training to the client and their employees on doing a daily check-in. Have them look at the water temperature, do a fish count, observe corals, check the sump, and make sure your auto top-off system is working properly. That 2 or 3 minute daily check-in is one of the most valuable pieces of advice I could offer. Well, YouTube, thank you again for coming out to listen to me to discuss my experiences in the reef keeping hobby. Please like and subscribe and have fun with those black tangs and other $1,000 fish out there. And I will see you in the next video.